The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
It's the Best Birth Podcast, where we interview experts that elevate you as you prepare your heart and mind to have the best birth.
Each episode will interview professionals so you are prepared for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Our experts will build your confidence and empower you to trust your intuition throughout your pregnancy.
This audio is taken from videos on YouTube. Watch the entire episodes on YouTube at Birth Made Mindful. You're listening to the Best Birth Podcast. Today, our guest is JayCee Wall, and today we'll be talking all about twins.
JayCee Wall is a mom of 4. She's a lover of Pilates, yoga, pickleball, Diet Coke, cheeseburgers, binge-watching TV, and spending time with her family. She loves to make people laugh, and she loves to laugh. And for her, there is nothing better than giggling uncontrollably. Welcome, JayCee.
Thank you.
You are the mom of twins. How did that birth compare to your other 2 births?
When I was pregnant with my twin, I was in a lot more pain than I was my first birth. I was like almost 38 weeks and I was so beyond done. And I was at Sunday dinner, I remember, with my mom and sister, and I was like, I'm just going to head to the hospital. And they're like, are you in labor? And I was like, I don't know, but at this point, I don't care anymore. I am so done. And I feel like when I was greeted when I had my first, they're kind of like, oh, well, don't get settled, But when I mentioned I was having twins, it was like they rolled out the red carpet. It was like you were welcomed with open arms. And luckily, I wasn't dilated to a 5 when I got there, so they let me stay. But yeah, very, very different, very different.
And so when you were pregnant with twins, were you given a lot of options on delivery?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the whole time, my plan was definitely vaginally. I had a vaginal with my first and I really liked it. It all went well. So I really wanted to do that with twins. I don't know if most people know this, but when you are pregnant with twins in the last 4 weeks, you get checked every other day. So you go into the specialist, they and monitor you for like 45 minutes. So on Thursday, when I went in for my monitoring, both babies, A and B, were head down. But when I went into the hospital, obviously you go every other day, but then the weekend. So I went in on Sunday. By that time, baby B had flipped back up into my ribs. So A was head down, B was up. So I was obviously planning on going vaginally. And like I said, I was dilated to a 5. When that happened, they definitely offered to me that we can try and flip, but the chances of it turning into a C-section are really high at that point, because instead of dealing with 1, you're dealing with 2, and there's just more complications. And I just decided to go C-section.
And then how was it with your 4th? Did you do a VBAC after?
I definitely chose to do a VBAC. I like the recovery a lot more on that. And like I said before, I didn't have to have a C-section because of complications or anything. It was just luck of the draw that baby B had flipped. So smooth sailing on 1 and 4. And like I said, C-section with the twins, which great, it worked out, but the recovery is definitely it kicks you in the butt.
Well, and let's talk all about your pregnancy with twins. So that was a fantastic, delivery. When you were pregnant with twins, were there a lot of emotional things that you had to overcome as far as, getting ready for having now 3 babies that were going to be reliant on you and needing you all the time?
Totally. So when I got pregnant with my twin, me and Justin, we had been trying for 18 months. And we finally got pregnant, and I went to the doctor, and he was checking me, doing the usual things, like at the 8-week check, or I think it was 7 weeks, so I was going out of town. And he kind of was hemming and hawing and saying these things, and he was like, he's writing, I went to a new doctor, so he's writing on this pad, and he looks up and he's like, how big was your first baby? And I was like, 6, 7. And he was like, are you sure you're right on your dates of periods and everything? And I was like, I'm pretty sure, I've been tracking for 18 months. I was pretty aware of when my last period was. And he was like, well, one of 2 things. You're either pregnant with twins or you've got a tumor. And I was like, I don't like A or B. Can I get another option? Uh, so I actually didn't tell anyone that for like 2 weeks. I just thought he was like cuckoo cabana and an old man who didn't know what he was doing. And this was just by feeling. He hadn't had an ultrasound or anything yet. And he was like, I'd like to schedule you for an ultrasound as soon as possible to get you in. And I was like, well, it's summertime. I've got my family reunions. I can't be bothered with this. I was like, as soon as I can get back, I think it's like 3 weeks. And he was like, okay. So I think I was in like serious denial. And then literally 2 weeks after that, Dr. Wave and I was at the mall with my sister, and I was like kind of thinking about what he had said. And I was like, Kinsey, do you remember our old doctor who had retired ever mentioning anything to you about twins? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, he said this. And she was like, you're kidding. And I'm like, no. And so week later, obviously, I go in for the ultrasound. Justin was taking a final exam, who's my husband. My mom was having knee surgery, and my sister had 3 kids at the time. So my dad actually ended up coming with me to the ultrasound. And she didn't put it on, not for 2 seconds, lifted it up, and she was like, yeah, it's twins. And I just shot up, and just the tears started running down my face. My dad started crying, and I was just like, I am not prepared for this. Like, and I for sure went into a little bit of depression for the next few months. Like, it was really hard for me to wrap my head around it. Justin, my husband, was still very early on in his schooling, and I was still the full-time breadwinner. And I was like, how the heck am I going to be in charge of 3 kids, pay the bill, and BS all night long with friends? So it took me a long time to get excited. I actually don't know if I ever really got excited. I think I was always more nervous and just trying to always compute it in my head how I was going to do it all.
Wow. You share some of the realities of this pregnancy experience and just all the emotions that come with expecting
For
and
sure.
expecting multiples. What were some of the things that you used to help you when you did have those 3 children? Were there gear or, the double boppy for the twins?
Oh my gosh. The double boppy was my literally game changer. It saved my life. I didn't breastfeed. So I would literally just like stick the bottles in, and it would take me 45 minutes to do a feeding. They were 4:10 and 4:14. And after 7 days, Coco went back into the PICU.
Was there any other piece of equipment, some gear that helped you with twins?
So I had the twin boppy, which I thought was amazing. Every night, I pre-made their formula, and I would make 52 ounces every single night because they had to be on this special formula because they were crazy spit-uppers and all this stuff. So it took so long to dissolve. So I would make it at night. So by the morning that it like all had not been slumped out, because if I put it into their bottles, which had such small nipples, it would get clogged. So I had to like have it all prepped the night before. I used to I literally like a Kool-Aid jug. So I made that every night. That was a big thing. Swaddles. I went through like 6 swaddles a day because my kids were profusely spit up. So they would drench them. So I loved all my swaddles. My stroller and car seat, game changer. I had the Uppa Baby. I absolutely loved it. Your sound machines. I'm a pretty basic mom when it comes to like the needs. But those few things, like, game changers, like, so good. But
I even saw one of those baby carriers that was made for twins.
I had one of those. It was like, they were just kind of starting to come out with those, but me and Justin both, he like loved to wear them too. So we had 2 baby carriers. So we would do that more than the other one. I don't feel like we ever like got the hang of the multiple one, but baby carrier, game changer. At one point they were so tiny, I would keep both of them in one. And that was amazing. But that obviously didn't last too long. I feel like even in the last 7 years, they've come out with so much more baby stuff. It's so crazy.
A lot of moms who say that they've had their kids a little bit further apart are amazed by the new gear that comes out.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, my twins and Brody are 5.5 years apart, and I felt like I was doing this all over for the first time. There's just so much more new, amazing things.
Well, you talked a little bit about feeling some depression. Was that during pregnancy?
For sure. For sure. I had a little bit more of the blues when I was pregnant. After I delivered my twins, I think I went into survival mode, which I'm sure like most moms do. I don't really remember the healing part of it because, like I said, Coco went to the PICU at 7 days and she stayed there for 7 days. And then 2 weeks later, she went back again for another 5 days. And at the time, I had Frankie at home and Frankie couldn't come to the PICU. So I had a 4-pound baby at home. I had a 4-pound baby in the PICU and I had a 3-year-old. And it was like trying to figure out where to be. Me and Justin pretty much split days and nights. He was at the hospital during the night. I was at the hospital during the day. My mom with Frankie during the day while I was at the hospital. And so my healing, I feel like it was just like, you have to heal. Like you got to move on because you're moving on with this, you know? But I definitely went into a more of, I wouldn't say as much as the blues anymore, but I definitely had like, I don't know if it was like severe OCD. I would clean my countertops like 50 times a day. I couldn't have anything out of place because it would make me like go crazy. I still have like things like that, but it was like really heightened the first 6 months. So extreme. I was neurotic about everything, just being on their schedule. And I think, like I said, it was just survival mode. I couldn't have a piece of laundry in the hamper. Like it was crazy. And, I was crazy. I was for sure a little crazy, but, you know what? You do what you have to do to be in that survival mode, you know, and that's obviously what I chose. That was how I coped and how I felt in control, was to have things in control. But I'm glad that I've got rid of a little bit of that because it was a crazy time. The first 6 months are very, I don't remember a lot. And I had a really hard time connecting with Coco. I remember saying to my mom, looking at her one day and saying, I feel nothing. And I don't know if it's because she was like at the hospital so much when she was first born, but it was like this weird disconnect. And my mom was like, it will come. And I'm like, when? Like, it's 6 months. This is insane. Then the mom guilt comes in. You're like, this is just crazy. When you have your first, it's just like such this instant love and like all these things. And I don't know, when I had the twins, I really struggled connecting. And I think that's because I was just like on autopilot. I was check marking. Did you feed? Did I change your diaper? There was never any holding and cuddles and loves. It was literally just a constant, never ending checklist. And at the time I was still working like full time. And I remember I hired 2 15-year-olds. So I would do lashes like all throughout the day. And I hired 2 15-year-olds, paying them each, you know, however much I was paying them. And they both screamed bloody murder the whole time. And I said to my mom, I don't even know what to do. Like, I'm hiring 2 people to do this and it still cannot be done. So it was definitely a crazy time. But with every mark, I feel like with twins, when you have one, it's like, oh, you're sitting. But when your twin sat, you cried. You're like, this means I can sit you down and walk over somewhere, you know? When your kids slept through the night, you were literally like over the, I mean, it was just like every mile marker was so much of a bigger deal with twins. And they walked later than my daughter, not super late, like it was 13 months. So, but my other one walked at 9 months. But when they walked, it was like praise, because carrying them around was so heavy. I mean, I would carry one on my hip, both on hips all the time, frontwards usually because they puked all over me. But yeah, just mile markers and things. I feel like you just really appreciated them more with twins.
That's an incredible story for our listeners, recognizing that, yes, there are moments that you're going to feel crazy, but you have to keep going and you will be okay. It's going to take some time, but everything is going to settle down. You will come up for air eventually and
absolutely
do what you need to do. Bring in that village. Like you said, you had your mom and your partner and babysitters, trying to take it one day at a time, one step at a time, treasuring those magic moments with those babies, but also giving yourself a lot of room to just do the basics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say, so I don't traumatize too many people, like I said, with every age, it got easier and more enjoyable with twins. And like 3, I saw so much light. And now my twins are my greatest joy. They are so sweet to each other. They are each other's biggest cheerleader. You get to see all the amazing things now. You get to see your girls walk into school every day and always have a buddy. There's so many amazing things about twins. But those first 3 years, they'll kick you right in the butt. And then you get to see a lot of wonderful, wonderful things that come from it.
What age are they now so that we can freeze that age in time?
I know. They're 7, and it is amazing. 7 is such a good number. 7. If all our kids could just stay 7 forever, right?
Yeah.
Those
And then
gangly teeth haven't come in yet.
Yes. You have another boy. He is how far apart from the twins?
Brody's 5.5 years younger than the twin.
And how is that process?
A little surprise. Oh my gosh, that's been the best duo forever. It's been so fun. We weren't planning on it, and it was the best surprise ever, and the best. Me and Dustin both say best mistake we've ever made. We've gotten to see our 3 girls be little moms. He's definitely the most adored in the family. He's unanimously everyone's favorite. And it's so fun to like do it over a little bit older. And I feel like I'm way more relaxed, and I've gotten to really, I feel like, enjoy the baby infant phase with this one, and like just not wishing it away, because I for sure think I felt that with the twin.
Do you have any advice for our listeners on how to enjoy those small moments?
Are you saying with twins or for just your one?
Just for one.
Just for one.
No, the twins too, but obviously, like you said, there's an element of survival mode, and it's probably the wrong advice to tell a mom of twins to enjoy the moments.
Totally. Exactly. No. I wish I knew what the advice was. I think it's just like a different stage of life I'm in. I'm working less for the first time ever, and I really just have gotten to completely enjoy it. It's been such a good experience. And it's really fun to have helpers, and they enjoy helping, which is so fun to see. And he's also been just a really easy baby. So it's just been easy to enjoy. He's just our little bundle of joy.
So great. I've learned from Sarah this podcast experience that it's almost a reframe of choosing to view your role as a calling instead of a job. And I think that can help switch with the work that it is, because it is demanding. It is a lot. It requires a lot of things, but we can also do it. We're equipped with those tools.
Oh, absolutely. And I think women are so freaking strong, and we get a lot thrown at us, but we'll rise above it, and there is light at the end of the tunnel.
We love to share resources with our listeners. Do you have a favorite book or favorite resource you'd like to share?
So I always did Baby Wives before my twins. I was big into Baby Wives with Jonesy, and I loved it. She slept great. It worked for her. When I was having the twins, I was like, it's not clicking. There were some things that were off, just little tweaks. And I feel like a lot of these books are very similar in ways, but I did find it's like old school. It's a book called 12 Hours by 12 Weeks. And it was a twin mom. And I took it and ran with it. And my twins did sleep 12 hours by 12 weeks. And I swear that was my saving grace, because every single night, no matter what had happened through the day, I mean, it could have been insane, and most days were, they went to bed at like 6:50 and would sleep till like 7:45, 8 the next day. And that was like my saving grace, because I knew that when they went to bed that time, I had the evening that I could do whatever I want, whether that was run to freaking Popeyes and get a freaking spicy chicken sandwich and eat every carb in sight with a large Diet Coke, or, whatever I needed that night. That was my resource. And I think it saved me from, going a little crazier than I already was. Maybe saved me a few Clorox slides, because I was already going through them like a wild woman.
Oh, that is so fantastic. Thank you for sharing that resource. We also share a Mom Squad secret of the week. This time it's Liz, and she says, in the last few weeks of pregnancy, focus on relaxing your pelvic floor muscles instead of doing Kegels. Those good little tips that we all need before labor.
Absolutely. I wish I would have had more tips before labor. That is the main thing.
JayCee, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. We absolutely appreciate you.
Well, thank you, ladies. You guys are amazing.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. We hope you've been elevated and inspired by this week's expert.
Subscribe today so you never miss an episode. And please share our podcast or post on your social media so that other moms and dads-to-be can also have the best birth.
Please note that the information provided is based on the expert's insights and personal experience. It is not intended as medical guidance. Please seek the advice of your medical provider as it applies to your specific condition.